My name is Katherine Johnson, and I'm the director of the Guilford County Family Justice Center. As you just heard in Sonia's stories about friendship and shared passion, Sergeant Nix's extensive policing experience, coupled with an undeniable commitment to serving his community, especially the vulnerable, victims of child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, and elder abuse, he charted a new era for our Family Justice Center, community, and nation. Sergeant Nix was transformational. The think outside of the box vision of Sergeant Nix's mentor and longtime friend, retired Greensboro Police Captain Karen Walters, about how police should integrate with other agencies to increase victim safety, enhance offender accountability, became a reality under Sergeant Nix's leadership. As true leaders, translate a vision into reality. Now, the Alliance for Hope International President and CEO, who is with us here today, Casey Gwinn, along with other national leaders who love Dale, and they're seated with our Family Justice family, often says there's a fine line between a vision and a hallucination when you're growing a Family Justice Center. Well, you see, Sergeant Nix and I were known to get fired up, and we could come up with lots of big ideas. On more than one occasion, Sonia would look at us and say, "Y'all need to calm down." We would laugh, but collectively, we all understood that true collaboration and community change takes grit, dedication to service, and the ability to see a vision beyond oneself and one's singular organization. Sergeant Nix not only understood the mission of the Family Justice Center, he lived it. He became the driving force for how Family Justice Center partners in advocacy, legal services, social work, medical, mental health worked with law enforcement. He knew that to make the most significant impact on the public health and safety of our community, that our FJC would need to be a family that no matter what, stands with one another for the greater good, a family that works together to solve complex and complicated issues that are so often a part of working with victims of abuse, a job most folks don't want to do. Sergeant Nix loved the job. He took great pride in being and holding the title of the longest serving sergeant of the Family Victims Unit. He built a team that when he started, he was begging folks to join his unit, to a team that now has a waiting list of officers wanting to be an FVU at the FJC. As the first director of the Guilford County Family Justice Center, I often laughed with Sergeant Nix over the years that after he drank the Family Justice Center Kool-Aid, I sometimes thought he loved the Family Justice Center more than I did. When we worked together, presented, consulted, trained, collaborated, problem solved, you couldn't tell he worked for the city of Greensboro and I worked for Guilford County. We worked as one. And that was true no matter the person he worked with within our partnership. His leadership was profound. He had an impact on the thousands of lives that he saved, not only here in Greensboro, but nationwide. He taught law enforcement officers from all over about high-risk teams and understanding the lethality of strangulation, creating a life-saving ripple effect for survivors in crisis. In addition, he was known for going on the front lines, connecting directly with survivors and becoming their biggest champion, their hero. He had an unbelievable ability to make you feel seen and heard. And over the past week, survivors have called and messaged our team and said things like, "I met Sergeant Nix on the worst day of my life. I still remember how compassionate and encouraging he was at such a horrible time. He later testified in my trial in support of me and my family. He changed my life." Another survivor shared, "Sergeant Nix gave me courage when I had none. I was so afraid of my abuser. I was also so nervous about working with police because of my past. But when I came to the Family Justice Center and he walked into the room, I immediately felt safe. He was so kind and compassionate, he was the best. He went above and beyond to care for my family. He became my family. You see, Sergeant Nix always showed up with a fiery passion that was contagious. He was vigilant for justice, supporting a victim on their darkest days and sticking with them throughout their healing journey while doing whatever he could with Sonia to get a high bond and a conviction of an offender who did wrong. It wasn't his position in the Greensboro Police Department that made him powerful. It was his passion, a passion that propelled the Greensboro Police Department on the state and national stage for things like successful partnerships with law enforcement and family justice centers, establishing high-risk teams, and building effective elder abuse collaboratives. So where do we go from here? How do we ensure Sergeant Nix's legacy lasts, and what have we learned from his heroism? For Sergeant Nix, there were no limits and no scripted box. He had the highest level of integrity and loyalty, always doing the right thing and bringing others along with him. He would often say, put his hands in his pocket, almost roll his eyes, and say, "Let's be honest, Catherine. If I only asked cops how to solve a problem, I would only get a cop solution. But if I ask that advocate and the attorney and talk with the victim and a social worker, I get a much bigger picture of the problem and a much better solution." He was a master at breaking down walls and silos, and the times that are upon us now, there is no greater way to uphold the legacy and honor of Sergeant Nix. Kelly and Will, our partners will take it from here. We will continue the work of the Family Justice Center, a place that Sergeant Nix called a second home. We will continue to drive the changes that he started and initiated at the same level of intensity and passion and hold tight to the work he loved so well. We will honor him for our lifetime and beyond. I want to close with a story, and I have to use Dale because this is a Dale story, not a Sergeant Nix story. As Sonia mentioned briefly, the Family Justice Center has a program for youth who've been impacted by domestic violence and trauma called Camp Hope America. We started this program 8 years ago, and it's grown exponentially. Camp Hope offers an early intervention for youth who are exposed to violence and abuse, giving them a different pathway towards hope and healing, breaking the cycles of abuse that so many families face. In our field, and Sergeant Nix believed this, we believe that this is the most powerful crime prevention initiative and the most effective type of criminal justice reform. FJC partners like law enforcement refer families to our week of overnight camp and year-round mentoring, and Sergeant Nix, he always had referrals. And that was because he maintained such effective and long-term meaningful relationships with families. So referrals came easy, and he remained invested with the families that he served. Each October, we host a carnival night, a Camp Hope carnival night at the Family Justice Center in Greensboro. And families are invited, our partners come along, they bring their kids. Partners are invited to wear a costume and dress up and have activities and games. The Greensboro Police Department's Family Victims Unit takes this event very serious. From elaborate costumes to decorating offices and hallways, this event brings helpers and families together in meaningful ways. This year, Sergeant Nix dressed up as the Star Wars character Obi-Wan Kenobi. When talking with Will this week, I asked him, "Hey, Will, does your dad like Star Wars?" And he replied, "Oh, yes." And I don't know anything about Star Wars, so I had to do a little digging to learn about this character, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and to discern if there was a possible connection between Dale and his costume of choice. In the movie, A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi knows his time on Earth is coming to an end. He is working to infuse as much as he can in those he loves and cares for. And one of his most famous quotes is, "If you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." Obi-Wan sacrificed his life for the greater good, and he knew the impact that his greatness would have for generations to come. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that God prepares us and reminds us of his mercy and grace in the most unlikely and even darkest of times. Sergeant Nix instilled his passionate power in all of us. He sacrificed his life to save others, his life for the greater good. He knew we had it in us to continue on even after his untimely death. May we use the power and wisdom he gave us to fight for justice, protect victims, hold offenders accountable, and be the kind of leaders that put collaborative solutions above individual agendas. And may we always take care of our family.